Difficulty is a hot topic for video game discussion, but two games I find fascinating when compared to one another in this regard is Celeste and the Dark Souls series. Because even though one of these games is 100 times harder than the other, the way that difficulty is framed offers a completely different narrative throughline. Dark Souls is infamously difficult, but I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. It's not that hard. Any dope who plays for an hour to a day can eventually work their way through these games. But so many people quit out of frustration. Of course, a tough challenge is enough of a reason, but three elements in particular make Dark Souls disheartening. The first is the aesthetic. Dark Souls illustrates a depressing world full of scary monsters. It's made to look soul-crushing and intimidating. In tandem with this is the controls. They are limiting and slow. It's clear you're supposed to feel underpowered to make the world all the scarier. And to top it off, whenever you die you lose all your souls, which are valuable commodities. And lastly, when you do die, you get kicked into a lengthy loading screen and back to your last bonfire, which are usually spaced a good ways apart from one another. This is especially frustrating when you're trying to defeat a boss, because you might spend anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes running back to the boss room. You are punished by failure, not just in the souls you lost, but in the time you lost as well. But again, these games aren't incredibly hard when you really pick them apart. I'm not going to pretend that there's not a good skill ceiling for these games, but the majority of challenges can be solved with foresight and pressing dodge at the right time. In stark contrast, Celeste's challenges are far more complicated with more mechanisms to interact with, and demands much better reaction speed from the player. Barring having to discover your next objective, in most ways I can imagine, Celeste is easily the harder of the two games. Even disregarding the B's and C side levels, which are extra hard remixes of the normal levels. And yet, I'm willing to bet a high percent of people completed Celeste compared to Dark Souls. Firstly, because the aesthetic is much friendlier and softer. And more importantly, when you die, it takes no more than a second to continue controlling Madeline again, and she's dropped in the same screen you died on. The experience of dying in Celeste is paced much faster, and that makes it feel almost weightless. Like there's no problem, you can try again right now. And lastly and most importantly, the way the mechanics encourages the player to try challenges. Celeste makes great efforts to take pressure off the player in spite of the difficulty. I'm especially impressed by the use of the strawberries. There is no tangible benefit to grabbing them. There's no true final cutscene hiding behind them, unless you really want Madeline's cake at the end of the game, to have as many strawberries as possible. It's fun to take the extra challenge anyway, and overcoming that challenge will probably polish the player's skills, because the only motivation for getting them is intrinsic to the player. There's no pressure in leaving one behind or coming back for it later. You won't need to unlock anything, and the autosave feature makes it easy to go back and grab it, then quit the level. It's no coincidence that one of the antagonists is a man who can let go of his past failures. There's no shame in knowing when to throw in the towel. In Dark Souls, there aren't any collectibles that have no practical value, at least theoretically. This makes them harder to ignore. Whenever the player sees that bright item marker in a potentially dangerous area, they'll probably feel the weight of a decision. Do you go for the possible benefits at the risk of your souls? Or do you come back for it later in bare condition, or ignore it entirely? Having consequences to failure makes decisions more important, and that brings you into the bleak setting and truly makes the adventure feel real. Of course, not every game has to be like this. Comfier, less stressful games should have a place for every fan of the medium. To put it plainly, Celeste is a game of technical mastery, while Dark Souls is a game of player psychology. And I think it's interesting to look at how other games handle difficulty. Older games use a life system giving you a finite number of tries. So in a sense, Super Mario Bros. Is harder than Dark Souls because Dark Souls lets you persevere endlessly, which perfectly matches the themes of that game. And then you'll have something like Shovel Knight, which is a fun middle ground between Dark Souls and Celeste, which is totally appropriate for the feel that game is going for. If there's anything to take away from this video, it's that what's more important than the difficulty of a game is the way that difficulty is framed and how it's leveraged against the player and for the player. Thank you all so much for watching today. Like, sub, you know the drill, and I hope you have a good one. I'm really sorry if these videos are feeling short at the end of my big power month. But you know, I gotta push out 31 videos somehow. And you know, I think I have enough lengthy ones to make up for it. But you know, I have one more lengthy one. And it's gonna be the longest one of them all. Probably. So tune in tomorrow when I rank all 121 games I've played over the COVID-19 pandemic. See you then.